Presenting Root Gaming, it is DisK.
Well, I guess we've already kind of had the romanticide experience in PvP today, haven't we, Roddy? I'm not going to forget soon about that Hellraiser game with Void Rays. What is the serial? Oops, all Void Rays. Forgot to build pretty much anything else, but it worked. And this is definitely one of those maps where if you want to play something a little more slow, play something that's got a bit more wind up to it, you can get away with those late game focused builds.
And I actually feel like there is a lot of potential to get a long game between these two. DisK, honestly, to me, feels a little bit like a Canadian Showtime. He likes to just expand. He likes to get a lot of sentries out and keep track of what his opponents are doing. Nina, of course, has a lot of very fancy and flashy builds up her sleeve. But on the romanticide, there is only so much you can get away with. And it's either of the very get-go or it's almost not at all. And there's a good chance we're going to see a long, messy, crazy game. And if I think back of the playoff series that these two had, I don't remember the details. I just remember the games were pretty epic, and it often came down to a few big disruptor hits towards the end of the game. I know it was a banger of a series, and I was very impressed by Nina, her performance in that one, because DisK is really not an easy opponent to defeat in either a best of 3 or a best of 5 in that regard.
Yeah. There's been a really I really feel like the competitiveness in this region has been improving and been a lot more interesting to watch when you have Estrella contesting against, the Neeb, Masa, Scarlet. That kind of trifecta was, if you nobody could touch them, right? They sat at the top of the ladder, kind of looking down smugly on everybody else, and then Estrella came up and he kind of started making those blows, getting those things done. We had Namshar come over, and he's been a staple competitor in these circuits. And at the same time, DisK, who has been, in my opinion, and I think you agree based on what you were just saying, he's also been improving over time. So the level of competition is rising. That's always nice to see. And I think, just like you were saying, this definitely could have the potential to go long. Nina is someone who likes to throw out tricky builds every now and again. But if I be honest with you, I don't know 100% what she's doing in PvP these days. So it's as good as anyone else's guess.
Yeah, it's hard, I think, to be super creative and be like, oh, I'm gonna play so different than everybody else in PvP. There are obviously some very strong timings early on, but especially on the romanticide, whether you want to or not, the best thing you can do is just to expand. You can get away with maybe the 1 gate fast expand, but going for a 2 gate opener and just expand with the gates on the high ground is probably the safest way to go about it. And I think we're going to see something quite similar. I think Nina will probably go Twilight Forge as well. I know that DisK is very fond of the Twilight Forge stuff. And then we're just going to scout, macro up, and get a lot of Blinky boys and take it from there.
Sounds good to me, Kev. Sounds good to me. Is it something that's just kind of been more normal with sticking on stalkers, or is this like build some stalkers, kind of poke and then go charge a lot of Mortal Archon? Because it still feels like we've seen a lot of that. I guess Estrella skipped the immortal part in his game that went long in his series earlier.
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on the styles. I think on this map, it's really good to just get a lot of Blink Stalkers out, like going straight into charge and then trying to hit some sort of Immortal Zealot Archon timing. It is possible, but most of the time you only see that if one of them actually opens up with a Stargate. Because if you open up Stargate against Twilight, your Blink is going to be later already. You're going to be down a bit in the Stalker department. So then it makes some sense to maybe just skip Blink and try to hit a very fierce timing. But if it's Twilight against Twilight, if you don't open up Blink, you can actually just die if your opponent runs to the other side of the map, because Zealots are very good against Stalkers, but only in the numbers where the Stalkers can't micro anymore, right? But if it's only like 8 or 10 or 12 Zealots, well, the players at this level, they can just kite those Zealots, they can out-micro them with ease, and then you run out of steam, and then you're just a sitting duck, because the Stalkers of your opponent will pick you apart. So I kind of wonder if any of them just wants to completely skip the whole Archon phase. That's what I'm mostly interested in, and see if we can just rush into double Robo Bay immediately and play Blink Stalker Disruptor.
All right, I'd like to see that. I mean, if you're watching, especially players like Nina who are really good with disruptors, M Canning, those phases of the game always get crazy. PvP kind of turns into, you know, disruptor bowling on all those stalkers. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. That is exactly the kind of PvP that I'm interested in. I know that it's very stressful trying to control those disruptors, especially when they blow up 30 supply in 1 second. But between me and you, just watching it is a treat.
It's super fun. I'm totally with you. And the funny thing about disruptors is obviously that you always have your disruptors in a control group by themselves. And that means that they move together. So they're always next to each other. And if then your opponent has one flanking disruptor, one hit could truly be all it takes for 4 or 5 disruptors to fall. And we've seen plenty of PvPs end. This is going to fire up charge immediately. Let's see if Nina decides to do the same thing or if she has something else up her sleeve. I mean, with the amount of gateways Nina's producing, I'm kind of expecting her to go charge as well.
It would make sense. She is going to start up the +2 ground weapons. Well, I guess DisK gets his at the same time, too. Kind of, I mean, you're right? It's basically everything's the same. She got the Observer. He's still building the Immortal. But there's no charge yet starting for the red Protoss player, and she's warping in another Stalker. So is there a chance she doesn't get it?
Yeah, there is a chance. If her plan is just to drop that Robo Bay and go into a second robotics facility, yeah. I mean, yep, there it is.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. So there is indeed a chance. I do think it's hard, even on Romanticide, to just go straight into those disruptors. Now, if DisK is not on the money with his scouting, and DisK will just sit back and get like 4 Archons and a whole bunch of Zealots, and then he's like, all right, let's actually see how your army looks. And it's like, whoa, you've got 3 disruptors? That's where it gets real bad for Nina. But if that doesn't happen, I feel like DisK can just A-move with Zealots, Archons, and Blink Stalkers, and it's really hard to hold. If all you have is like 1 disruptor, no matter how big that hit is, you're probably not going to overcome the firepower of all those Zealots and Archons.
That's definitely something to keep our eyes on, because that Prism is building for DisK, and Nina's Robo Bay is done now, and the second robotics facility has begun. But, as you said, if this Prism and this army comes across in that next minute, and there's only 1 disruptor, it could be difficult to get a miracle shot that just kills the entire Zealot force. But she's going to boot up the charge upgrade now, and there's just a couple of guys going up towards that top right with those Zealots. Nothing crazy. There are some spotter pylons around the ends of these expansions, so Nina will get a heads up. Actually, yeah, these Zealots head straight for it, so she knows what's going on. Need to make sure you don't get baited too far on the outside, because DisK's army, well, it's starting to move. There's a blink. It's starting to head up towards there. He's waiting to get some units, I think, baited from Nina.
This is actually very cool. The Zealots are pulling all those Stalkers out of position, so that may open the center in the map, but Nina still has plenty of Stalkers there too. And her first Disruptor is already out, and Disruptor number 2 and 3 are on the way. Well, if DisK wanted to make something happen with just pure Zealots, Archons, and Immortals, he's going to miss that opportunity, and he's already dropped his own Robo Bay and the second Robo himself. So I feel that DisK needs to be very careful, by the way, that Disruptor is looking for a shot. But now I actually kind of like it for Nina, Nate, because Nina didn't invest in all those units that are really not going to make the difference in this Disruptor war. And DisK not expecting to find the Disruptor in the bottom side, Nina draws the first proper blood in this game.
Yeah, well, proper, the operative word there. That's some proper blood. You blew up a whole bunch of Stalkers. That's a big score for Nina, and that's created now almost a 30 supply gap in army supply. And let's not forget that means the Disruptor's still here. We've got several on the field, 3 of them with this Stalker ball for Nina. And DisK, he is getting out his own Disruptors, has just 1 at the moment though to defend this third base with.
26 Stalkers on the side of Nina against only 13 on the side of DisK. Now, of course, there's still 1 defensive Immortal. There's a battery to rely on. But this is honestly going to get very, very tricky. Second Nova goes forward, pushes the army away. Nice forward blink by Nina. Sniping that Disruptor as he gets the big shot off on the Disruptor of DisK.
Oh my God.
Nina might just be running away with this game because all these fights are going in her favor. And even battery overcharge may not save DisK here, as Nina just jumped on top of the 1 Immortal and picked that one off too.
Going to say a lot of those Stalkers were shooting at the Nexus, getting some of the shields off of it, but Nina pulls back. There's the blink forward, focusing down the Disruptors that she does have. DisK gets all 3. Force fields are getting dropped, but there is that Archon to create a space if necessary. So the Stalkers trade out, and well, Roddy, I didn't think that DisK was going to be able to just click on all 3 disruptors and get them without losing anything else. That big fight on the Nexus with all those force fields out of DisK, just keeping them from being able to shoot together, may have saved his life. Right? I believe it did.
Absolutely. The force fields were good, and just zoning a lot of those units outside of the battle and then battery overcharge did kind of save him. I mean, I should have realized that battery overcharge can save you all the time.
Good unit.
Yep. DisK did have 2,000 minerals in the bank, by the way, while that fight was taking place. Now, DisK is going to blink into the disruptors, does not kill one of them. So he's going to lose a lot of Stalkers. The other Stalkers gets surrounded. Nina with the blinks around. I mean, that's beautiful. And just when things started to look a little bit better for DisK, I feel he's under a lot of pressure again. And it's still going to be very, very hard for the Canadian Protoss to stabilize.
Yeah, Nina's been pumping out those double disruptors throughout the entirety of this game. A couple were lost, but she still got 4 compared to 2. And, well, the production's going to keep on moving. The +3 attack advantage that DisK had is about to be gone. Nina's upgrade is about to complete. She's got cannons battening down the hatches on the expansions, and she is looking for opportunities to make a play.
Well, Nina just lost a lot of Stalkers. He did pick off 2 Disruptors, so that's nice. But that's still a lot of supply to lose. DisK also saw that the Disruptors were kind of exposed. No, he didn't. Because that was the observer of Nina that saw it. So DisK had no idea that many Stalkers went to the other side. It's a fun game, but if Nina gives DisK some time to stabilize, and obviously this is still anybody's game, there's both of them going up to 5 bases. It's actually kind of insane that we don't have a Dark Shrine. I guess they've just been trading a little too much over the last few minutes. Well, speaking of, there is the first Dark Shrine. Because normally 4 back came both players
and
getting
another
a Dark
one.
Shrine. Yeah, oh, makes sense, makes sense.
Gets a couple Stalkers with that shot. Going to be able to catch the ones that are trailing out for DisK. Is Nina, and then another one. Oh, well, just kills Zealots. Just kills her own Zealots. Bit unfortunate, but it does happen every now and again.
Yep. I mean, this is what we were talking about earlier. Zealots and Novas, they don't go that well together. But this is honestly working out in favor of DisK, because this was in some serious trouble. The entire investment in Archons and the Immortals wasn't quite paying off. And you're behind in Disruptors. It's hard to catch up, but it seems like DisK has weathered the storm. Well, Nate, we hoped for a longer game. We hoped for an epic game. I don't know if it's epic yet, but I feel like we're heading into pretty epic territory.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Nina's been bringing the heat, but DisK has not been... He hasn't given up. He hasn't given up too much ground. He's still keeping at it. Disruptor shots coming out. Gonna get one Stalker on the tail end, but now there are so many Disruptors on both sides. I still think it's really important, though. I mean, Nina is starting to zone DisK away from his own expansion, and she can start get to work on that economy.
Stalkers coming in from the right side. DisK has warped in 11 Stalkers on the right side. He's going to blink on top of these Disruptors. He still has some batteries helping out here, too. Good shot, of course, on one of the Disruptors by Nina, but there are the good shots of DisK. And DisK should be able to win this with all the defensive reinforcements. Look at these Zealots as well. Zealots actually really good in these kinds of fights. When there is nothing that is supposed to be really good against Zealots. If they can just get on top of the units of your opponent, you know it's going to be a good fight for you. Really well done by DisK to warp in those 11 Stalkers on his base at 3 o'clock, basically.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Now DisK continues to push that third base. Nina has one of her Disruptors stuck on the outside. She's building 3 at a time right now, also getting +1 shields to make those units in general just a little bit sturdier, as well as buildings, cannons, etc. Has to recall some forces to the southwest to protect that expansion. But oh my God, Kev. Well, DisK has definitely been making the most of the opportunities that Nina has afforded him.
Nina is chasing the army of DisK. If DisK fires, DisK can see that army. I don't know if he wants to fire. Okay, Nina actually has an observer there, so he knows exactly where all the units are of DisK. DisK is going to get Shadow Stride on his Dark Templars, so they can start blinking. I mean, that was just an amazing fight for DisK. It was the very first time he actually properly won a fight, but he won it in a big way, and he came out of it, I want to say with a Disruptor lead, but at this point, it's Nina who's on triple Robo, so she actually got back up to 8 Disruptors real quick, and now she's starting to attack the base on the right side, but she's not paying attention with her Disruptors. Loses 2 of them immediately, and the Observer is a little bit late, so the Dark Templars got a lot of fights off.
Yeah, DTs went ham on those Stalkers. The rest of the Disruptors coming up for DisK. Almost connects with a large group of the Stalkers, and Oh, then you see that Nina, she's got her disruptors a bit clumped up, Kev. We were talking about this earlier. Always a terrifying moment watching those fly across. A good amount of cannons at this expansion, I don't think can stop the entirety of this Stalker army. And was that the pylon shut down to keep the DTs from warping in? I think so.
Yep, and also this unpower all the cannons and unpower the battery overcharge. Seems like this is going to turn into a little bit of a base trade. I don't know who this would favor. I mean, most of the disruptors is still defensively, and it's actually kind of hard to just dive on top of bases. DisK is getting some really nice pickups here, and these pickups are really starting to count because Nina just went from being a 5 base Protoss to a 3 base Protoss.
Indeed, indeed. And I mean, Nina at the same time did a good job cutting down DisK's expansions. He's taken another one on the low ground outside that 3rd base. But Nina is stuck on those original 3 bases, which is very important to keep in mind. DisK being able to get a 4th, either player being able to get a 4th would be huge here.
There was a shot heading towards all those disruptors of DisK, and it fell like a centimeter short. It was an inch for you, Nate. I know we're casting NA StarCraft. It was real close.
Well, you know, I am self-educated. I understand the metric system, Kev, so I do appreciate the conversion for me, though, regardless. But, well, that was the goodbye to the probes, too.
That was oddly satisfying, by the way. You don't often see like 15 probes just being surrounded by DTs.
Well, I don't think I need to tell you that I enjoy watching probes blow up in groups.
So it seems like DisK got ahead of all the craziness that has just taken place, because obviously DisK was able to get that base at the bottom side up and running too. Still has all those Dark Templars running around with Blink, but Nina has her own DTs with Blink and are going to make their way towards the top right side of this map. Disruptor count is 13 against 8. 13 disruptors is just so many disruptors.
Yes, it is. It just turns everything into such a crazy game, because almost no matter what you have on the ground, 13 disruptors can kill it. Now, they might not kill it, but they could. And that fear, the having to take that into consideration turns the game very, very weird. We did have a Stargate get built by DisK. Nothing else was committed on top of that, obviously, due to the, I assume, the economic situation that's been created by both players having Dark Templar and absurd amounts of disruptors. Nina's going to get on top of that fresh base in the bottom left.
Nina, there's
probes here.
Oh my god, Nate! Nina getting her disruptors to the high ground, landing some absolutely phenomenal Purification Novas.
You just kill them all?
He killed 3. Yes,
yeah,
he killed them all.
They're all dead. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Excuse me. That was, oh my, well, yeah, that'll do it.
Well,
this 7
might be a
disruptors in
good
a heartbeat.
fight for this, though. This is a really nice engagement with all the Zealots getting on top of the disruptors. Does lose a bunch of Stalkers, but this, despite the fact, oh, that Nexus lives. Are you kidding me?
2 hit points. 2 hit points, Kev. Oh, well, we certainly signed up for a series here, didn't we? DTs are still doing work back at Nina's base. And you know what? It's 35 to 37 workers. Oh, my goodness. Well, at the very least, if I'm looking for silver linings, Nina did get a couple of those bases back up, but can she defend them is going to be the big question. There are still plenty of disruptors. If there's one thing that she hasn't stopped doing, it's building those.
Yeah, I mean, Nina, it's actually a real shame for her that she wasn't able to get that base. She tried to send 1 Dark Templar over there, but obviously the shields are starting to regenerate. If DisK loses that base, then I'm like, all right, I actually think Nina pretty much almost has it, because he still has a big lead in Disruptors. DisK with a crazy blink forward somehow doesn't lose too many gateway units there. Well done by DisK. Yep, I feel like this is more of the same of when these two went up against each other in the playoffs, and it's just guaranteed fireworks when these two go at it.
Oh man, this has just been hell of a game, Kev. A hell of a PvP to get to watch, to get to cast, and I imagine just as stressful being in the driver's seat of either of these players. Does finally kill the 2 hit point Nexus. So there's a nice little W that Nina can walk away with here as the DT shut down another expansion. And I mean, that main base, mined out, natural, running dry. 3rd, kind of a similar situation. So at the very least, looking at the income, Nina has the opportunity to come back in this, but that supply gap is still there too.
Yep, now the armies are starting to get very, very close towards each other. DisK is sending 2 disruptors via the left side. Nina's got a disruptor coming in that could blow up these 2 disruptors. Who fired first? Oh my goodness, Nina fired first. It was so close. She does get the kill. I mean, getting the kill on that Nexus in the bottom side is so big because DisK's income is in absolute shambles. Nina is mining almost 1,000 resources more per minute than DisK is. And it kind of felt that DisK had the game never in the bag, but it felt like he was winning. Now it definitely feels like Nina is the one who's winning, because he's comfortably mining of 2 bases with plenty of resources left. I think it's almost now or never for DisK, and it might just be never running into this many disruptors. Can this ever work?
The DTs tried to blink into the middle of the army, so the disruptors were definitely getting routed early on. The Zealots just trying to close the gap. If they can all get on top of the Stalkers and rip them to pieces, then perhaps this can be broken, but it doesn't seem quite so. Retreating back behind the photon cannons. Shield battery overcharge activated. Nina at 35 army supply to 19 of DisK. Just 3 Stalkers over here trying to do it, and it's not enough. GG, Nina takes game 1.
Wow. A 22-minute proper slugfest with a couple of very, very big purification novas. I think at one point Nina killed 7 disruptors of DisK with 1 shot. DisK getting a couple of really good engagements as well, getting on top of the units with the Zealots and the DTs. And even there in the end, like sure, the novas were big, but if it wasn't for all those cannons and that battery, I actually think DisK's army could clean up that army of Nina, and if that base falls, then it would still be a very, very close game that DisK could potentially win. And it just wasn't quite enough in the end. Amazing game, very well done by both players, but Nina just skipping that Archon phase, that does really give her a strong lead heading into the early mid-game. That's not wisely won, because obviously so many things happened, but I do feel that if you are DisK, you need to capitalize on the fact that you have a stronger army for, it's not a big window, but there is a window, and then you do at least want to get out of that with a base advantage. I gotta say kudos to Nina, who was very active with her Stalkers and actually sniped 2 hallucinated Phoenixes, I believe, that prevented DisK from getting the information that Nina never got charged early on. Nina never got a Templar Archives. She just went straight into the double robo. So it was well done by Nina, but I still feel that DisK needs to look for that a bit more.
Lots of opportunities for both of them, Kev. It's I think it's about 42 degrees Celsius over here, but I think in my room it was starting to feel a little bit hotter than that during that game, because the absolute insanity of that back and forth was a lot. That was a lot to take. I don't know about you, but man, I am amped up for game number 2 if it is going to be anywhere close to what we just witnessed. And also just chat's just been insane during this one. Whew, we've got yeah, okay. I think we're in good series territory for wrapping the day up, and I just hope that we can keep this level of play, because good God, that was just wild. We're gonna go to Gigantha for their game number 2. So I don't know. Whew. What do you think someone just says screw it? I don't want to do another game like that, and we have something aggressive go on for the second game.
If it would be very aggressive, I feel like it would come out of Nina, because I think that DisK doesn't do that kind of stuff very often. And if he does do it, I think I actually had a little chat with him after the last time he went for like one of the 3-gate openers. Yeah, that was actually on Jagannatha, where I think he tried to punish an early express from Nina. He's like, I don't know why I did that. He's like, I never do that. I'm not even good with these builds. I shouldn't do that. So there is a chance that we get more of the same, but it is a bit easier to be aggressive on Jagannatha than Jagannatha. You say it. You're the only one who says it like that, Nick. You know that.
Well, you know what, Kev? I just, I got no answers for you on that one. I just say it. I just say it the way that it sounds like to me, and that's about it.
I'm not gonna tell you you're wrong. That's for sure.
Well, but between you and me, I do enjoy doing silly things every once in a while, because as long as people talk about that instead of balance whining in chat, I'm happy. And with that being said, we start game number 2. In the bottom left, we have the red Protoss player leading 1-0. She is Nina.
1-1 in her group so far. In the top right side, we're looking at the main base man who's 2-0 in this group. Both victories were 2-1. Can he get another 2-1? This is DisK.
7 disruptors with 1 shot, right? Is that where it ended up? The big one up the ramp, I think, right by that bottom left base last game.
Yeah. I gotta say, I actually felt that Nina, after that, she should have kept her army together. Because I think by splitting up her army, it actually allowed DisK to get a decent engagement on both sides and get on top of the army. And I feel like that should have never been that good for DisK in the end, after losing literally every disruptor before the fight even started. But it's really hard to make correct calls non-stop.
I thought the game was going to end right there. Yeah, I know, right? As soon as you see all the disruptors die, and then you're like, well, she was still in pretty deep, didn't have a reinforcement point, and then all of a sudden, everything else gets the surround. And even just watching that probe chase the other one around inside of Nina's base is still stressing me out, Kev, because the adrenaline is still running from that last match. And I do wonder if it is for our 2 Protoss players as well.
I have to say, I was a bit surprised to see how far DisK was out of position after he barely kept the Nexus alive. Basically, we ran circles in the center for 20 seconds, and then suddenly Nina could just casually walk into the only mining base of DisK and still kill that, at that point, still relatively low HP Nexus. I feel like DisK should have made it absolute priority #1 to keep that base alive, because that was honestly his only mining base. Because 15, 16, 17 minutes into Legacy of the Void, I think we all know that the first 3 bases are pretty much dried up at that point.
Yeah, the jockeying for those outside expansions turned into a huge point of contention. Nina's got that low ground pylon in front of the natural. Seems to indicate expand, right? Typically with this sort of setup.
Yeah, sometimes you can use it as a fake, but since Nina doesn't have any additional probes out on the map, I don't really think there's a whole lot he can do here, other than just expand. So he's going to open up with 4 Stalkers. Could be a little bit of 4 Stalker pressure. And it is important that you take this serious. DisK is going to get a battery on the low ground. Yes, he is. That is very important.
We saw that last game too, in the same sort of way, kind of behind where those minerals are, making sure that it's not too far forward to get poked out by anything else. Probe comes in, sees a couple Stalkers. Nothing super crazy. Next is both going to line up. And do you think we're going to just see them probably end up with a similar layout to the last game? For some reason, I just feel like that Twilight Robo is just, that's going to be bread and butter here.
Yeah, I mean, it's too late for a Stargate. There is maybe a small chance Nina does something wild, like go for a Robo immediately and then hit some sort of a weird Immortal Prism Gateway attack. But we can see now that ain't happening. It's Twilight and a Forge for both players. I gotta say, though, I really do prefer the opening build order of DisK by quite a bit. DisK's Nexus is a little bit quicker, not a whole lot, but it's a bit quicker. And then DisK has way more sentries, so DisK is going to have a better economy and better scouting, and even the tech is a bit quicker. So I don't really understand why we open up with 4 Stalkers if we really don't want to capitalize on what those 4 Stalkers can give us early on.
Yeah. So do you think it's just because she didn't want to get charged super early last game, that she just wants to build on the Stalker lead early? I see what you mean, though, right? Because she could have got the Nexus faster, too, if she wasn't going to pressure with it. Maybe she was expecting aggression?
Yeah, exactly. That's probably what it is, mate. Like, 4 Stalkers is very strong defensively. If your opponent does want to do something aggressive, you can just meet it. If your opponent opens up with the depths, it's also nice to have 4 Stalkers early on, because you're not going to lose a Stalker to 2 adepts, but you're definitely going to lose a Sentry. Yeah, with the way that it played out in the build order that DisK actually went for, I kind of favor DisK's position here a little bit. This is interesting. DisK is expanding towards Nina, while Nina is just taking the bases in a horizontal line. Kind of feel that this spells aggression from DisK, but not immediately, just a little bit later down the line.
Yeah, there's a couple different angles you can take to attack both of those bases, but Nina having the one in the back is... Yeah, I guess, does that mean that DisK wants to be able to rally forward and out a little bit more easily to bring that pressure? The robotics facilities are coming in for both of them. Everything tech-wise is completely lined up, and I think that they both seem to be aware that it's just kind of going to turn into the last game, basically. We're just waiting for the disruptors before the action kicks off.
Well, yes, but I do think that if DisK once more gets an early Templar Archives and an early charge, this time there is no way it's just gonna sit back. Because once the Disruptors are out in numbers, Archons just suck, man. Archons are too big, you can't really avoid the Novas, and then it's a lot like flirting at each other and you don't really want to engage. And Archons are not very good at that kind of stuff. Archons are really good at just getting in the thick of things and in the front line and they move. So I do think that if this can just scout one time and sees no Templar Archives but sees a Robo Bay, I think he will go pedal to the metal and he will try to end it immediately.
Well, that makes sense. The hallucinated Warp Prism makes its way into the main base mineral line. DisK, he clicked his army towards there for about half a second, then turned it back around, immediately realized, okay, clearly nothing is coming out of this. The hallucination expires, and just a little bit of soft mind gaming going on. Charge boots up for both players. We have +2 attack, and well, their Templar Archives that you were talking about, Kev, it is on the way. I don't expect Nina to go that direction herself, because she's kind of, Disruptor is really something that she leans on. I mean, we had that triple Disruptor setup, which kind of turned things around a bit in the later stages of that last map, and I don't know. I guess I'm kind of expecting DisK to try to do a little shimmy or make a little play here or there, somehow, some way. But they're both content to kind of take that pace.
Observers are actually meeting each other. I'm a bit surprised that Nina has quite some gas income. She's on 3 gas. This is not obviously an insane amount, but I think that's a little bit too much to just spam Zealots and Stalkers. And if you just want to spam Zealots and Stalkers, then you kind of need to have a better economy and you need to be a base up, because Archons really are king in these kinds of fights. Now Nina starts her Templar Archives, which is quite a bit later than the one of DisK. So if DisK just gets 2 Archons right now and forces a fight, that fight would heavily favor him. But I also think that Nina could maybe just run circles around that army. I don't think Nina should attack into DisK's army though.
She's kind of got the speed zone at least to play around a little bit with pulling away, but the force fields immediately start to land, and I think that's a really interesting point to bring up. He could have had Archons way earlier, which will naturally be very strong against the Zealots. But there's the Robo Bay for Nina, the Prism heading down the east side of the map, and those first Templar they're coming in. But well, Kev, we can see Nina has gone back home. She wants to make sure that everything is good and dandy over there, and make that move into the Disruptors. Even the cannons coming down a lot earlier, it feels, than the last game.
Yeah.
We're pretty far away from DTs entering this one, I think.
Nina is actually going to get 2 defensive Archons herself, despite the fact that she does have that Robo Bay on the way already. DisK has a Prism. Where did that Prism go? Okay, just send it back towards the center. It's with the main army now. Well, it almost feels that DisK is doing exactly what I thought he should have done, but now he's going to scout this army. And now I think at this point, you're going to have to disengage. You're like, well, you're doing like the same thing as me. Nina does have an 8-worker advantage though, so maybe DisK still wants to push the issue here, but it's so hard to attack into your opponent when they also have those shield batteries to fall back to. And don't forget about the Prism of Nina. If Archons are in the front line, they take a lot of damage, you just pick it up and you drop it next to a shield battery, you got a 4 HP Archon again.
Definitely something that needs to be kept in mind, as Nina has that huge gateway force that we've been talking about. But that the robotics bay is now also starting for DisK, getting it a little bit later. But if there's one thing that we know, Nina getting those Disruptors out early was one of the strengths that I'd say we should expect her to still lean on, waiting for that second robotics facility. Here's the Prism in the main from DisK, trying to get in there. Quick hold position around the cannon, so the Zealots can't even get on top of that. They will focus down 8 workers in this instead.
Wow. 12! It's 12 probes in the end, and that Prism actually lived. I gotta say, DisK really got the absolute best that he could hope for. But he needs to start cranking out those Disruptors. He saw it as well. The Robo Bay is done. I really like what Nina did in this game, because it's a bit of both. It's like not as greedy as the last game, but still trying to go into Disruptors quicker than her opponent, but at the same time still being safe enough, because this time we did invest in the Templar Archives, and we had some static defenses as well. This is honestly bulletproof play by Nina, and I kind of like where she got in this game, and where she's at right now. Doesn't mean she's going to win. It really comes down to the fights and who lands the bigger Novas, but I really like the way Nina has done everything so far in this game.
Yeah, has everything set up very nicely, taking that corner 4th base. And we have 1 Zealot happily slicing away. Dark Shrine is now coming in for DisK. Yeah, it does feel like the speed, the tempo's been turned down a little bit here, but DisK is ready to start getting into the action as he's maxed out. Cannons are going up at home, extra robo, and his +3 attack is going to finish before Nina's, just like in the last game. Stalkers blink up to prevent choking from happening. Solid Disruptor Nova into the Zealots.
Yep. That was just the first one. There is another disruptor that could potentially fire. Nina doesn't want to fire too early. Fires! That was actually well hidden. I didn't even see that shot going forward. I don't think this thought either, but at the same time, we do have a mass zealot one by the bottom right side. It's going to force a recall. So Nina will be able to keep this Nexus safe.
And Prism in the main, in Nina's main. DisK got something in over there too, bringing in a whole other level of harass. Zealots are actually stuck behind the cannons and the gateways and the pylons. They actually couldn't even get to anything of value to attack. So Nina ends up the better on this one too. Cannons bringing in the support, taking that Prism down. And Nina is looking fantastic. 177 to 120 for supply, Roddy. You warp in 8 Zealots behind a wall while there are Stalkers shooting from the other side. That is not a good time.
It felt like there were 3 fights and Nina just won all 3. She won the fight in the center. Can she snipe that disruptor? Yes, he can. This could very well just be a 2-0, even though that's the money shot. But DisK is so far behind that he needs more than 1 money shot. He is building 2 disruptors at a time, but he is taking a lot of economic damage here. Also, good blink forward there. Picks off 1 disruptor, gets the second one too. Do you think DisK can crank enough units out to somehow stabilize at least on 3 bases? If Nina disengages, I guess there is still a bit of hope. But that was honestly amazing defense by Nina. In the center, in the bottom right, and in the main base. Of course, the Zealot weapon was a bit clumsy because they were stuck. But still, just really well done by Nina. This shot, though, will go off. Not the biggest shot, but a decent one.
Yeah, it gets a couple of them. And Nina's, I guess the Stalker blink cooldown rotation is something to keep in mind. Her +3 attack is now done as well. So the head-to-head fight is definitely in hand if the Novas don't land. One gets a couple of the Zealots in that Archon. Like you mentioned, Kev, they are big. They are definitely some of the easier targets to land those Novas on. And, well, they can't just jump like the Stalkers. So it's just what, a Nova trying to force the stalemate out and just buy time with these disruptors. But it feels a little fruitless now because there's a whole base income advantage for Nina. She's had that bottom right one just mining away for a little while now.
Nina's actually playing at such a high level in this series. I think it's been really, really, really good. I don't even think that DisK is playing poorly. It's just that Nina is playing incredibly well. Her defense is amazing. Her transitions are on point. And I feel like not getting too carried away either with the aggression. It is still a little bit hard to just end the game against somebody with 4 disruptors. You don't want to throw away a big lead. Nina has a couple of Zealots on the left side running into all these Stalkers. Seems like DisK fired first there. So DisK gets the double kill. And is really making the best of this very tough 3-base scenario that he's currently in.
Yeah, Zealot counterattack in the bottom right. Gets a handful of probes. DisK gonna jump on top of Nina's army. Some force fields keeping the Stalkers close. Disruptor shoots from the northeast, hits nothing. And Nina is getting her own Dark Shrine at long last. Those shield upgrades again. Something that she likes to pick up for such a hit and run sort of styled composition.
There's one disrupted there, DisK blinking forward. I gotta say that previous forward blink, I wasn't too big of a fan of it. It's nice for blink, for DisK to pick off 2 disruptors. It's been a long day, man. It's nice for blink sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know if you can tell. No, it's
this could be a good fight. Oop. Yeah, I actually like it that Nina disengages. This forward blink ain't too bad, but when you're kind of broke, and this kind of 3-base economy really is a bit broke, you can't be making crazy forward blinks and losing 5 or 6 Stalkers at a time, because those Stalkers really are quite pricey. It is impressive that DisK is still finding as much economic damage as he is. He's even forcing out the recall now. This is not the entire army, so it's really important for Nina to get her forces together.
Yeah, cutting down the probes at that expansion. I mean, and I guess Nina isn't really mining gas off of it either, so it's not necessarily turning into the tech units in the same pace as a base could. Tries to go for the flank shot, unable to land.
There are DTs of Nina heading towards the top left side base of DisK, and DisK has no cannons there, no detection. DisK wants to focus on aggression, but he's gonna have to turn around immediately because he's about to lose an entire mineral line. Oh my goodness, he didn't pull. Yeah, he recalls, but after losing 26 probes, if you're already economically behind, that really, really hurts.
Now this one gets painful. What actually does manage to trim a few of the DTs there. Not bad, but yeah, losing the 26 probes. I mean, we were talking about the income difference before, and at this point, I guess the only thing that prevents it from climbing is maybe the minerals and the main and naturals starting to mine out. But here we go. Nina up the ramp, throws a couple of stuff to shot. She's going to get almost every single one that DisK has. And still a huge amount of zealots to buffer once it becomes just stalkers, keeping the disruptors of herself alive. 6-2 with 26 stalkers for Nina. DisK does have 37 of them, but the disruptors are going to try and change that. He's diving on top of her disruptors, getting the majority of them. The rest of the stalkers for Nina need to get back over towards this army, but they can't. And the disruptor's zoning away just a little bit more.
That was really well done by DisK, but I'm afraid it's not going to make the difference because Nina is just so much richer. And DisK is losing the mineral line again in the top left side. He even lost the Nexus.